They say the pyramids cannot be solved, that even now, with all our science, no one knows how they were made, or why they still hum at night when no one is listening. They were not built. They were summoned, pulled from stone with math no one remembers, and dreams no one can wake from. This is not a documentary. This is a ritual, because the truth is you were there, not as a priest, not as a pharaoh, but as one of the quiet ones, a worker, a builder, a soul hidden inside dust. And something ancient has begun to stir inside you. There is a reason your heart pounds when you see limestone stacked against the sun. There is a reason you dream of long corridors and cannot find the exit. There is a reason the number 3 follows you 3 chambers. Tonight, we descend not into facts, but into remembering. The blueprint wasn't written in ink, it was etched into bone. And you've carried it in your ribs like a forgotten hymn. So fall still. Exhale like the Nile drying in summer. Feel the air thicken with incense and sand. The gods do not speak in words. They speak in angles and silence. And you are listening now, as you once did. Subscribe if the memory burns. Leave a word below a name, a symbol, a scar you still carry. Now close your eyes. You are no longer here. You are beneath the rising sun, barefoot in golden dust. And your hands are already lifting the first stone. You don't know why you came here. Not exactly. Maybe it was the photographs. Maybe it was something you read as a child. Or maybe it wasn't you who chose this place at all. You arrive at dawn long before the tour buses, before the shouting, before the plastic water bottles and selfie sticks. There's only wind, and something older than wind. You step off the path. The sand is colder than you expect. And there it is, not rising, waiting. The pyramid does not loom like a monument. It just is. As if it's always been here. Even before the earth decided what shape to take. Its lines are too perfect to be casual. Its silence is too full to be emptiness. You walk closer. It's not beauty, or size, or history. It's something stranger, something personal. Like seeing a stranger's face in a dream and realizing they know you better than you know yourself. You try to rationalize. It's just stone. You whisper. But the closer you get, the more that thought feels like a lie. There is no sound, no voice, but you can feel it. The pyramid is watching you. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally. It sees you. Not your clothes, not your name. It sees you, the part of you that came before this life, the part you buried so deeply. You forgot it had a voice. You freeze, somewhere between fear and recognition. You realize this is not your first time standing here. You have no memory of building pyramids. But your body disagrees. Your chest tightens not in panic, but in pressure, like something inside is trying to resurface. The hairs on your arm rise. Your eyes blur. Not from emotion, but from memory. You place your hand on the stone, and in that moment, everything changes. Not in the world, in you. The stone is cool, cooler than desert stone should be. You expect it to feel rough, sandblasted, ancient, worn. But it's not. It's smooth, like it was shaped yesterday, like it was waiting for your hand. And in that contact, something unlocks. Not like a door swinging open, more like a thought you didn't know you were already thinking. A memory you didn't know you were carrying. It doesn't come in images. Not yet. It comes in weight, in stillness, in the taste of copper behind your tongue, in the sudden silence inside your chest, as if your heartbeat has paused to listen. Your hand remains pressed against the stone, but you are no longer here. Or at least, not just here. You are standing, yes, but you are also kneeling, barefoot, under torchlight. Your hand is calloused. There is dust in your mouth. Someone is chanting behind you in a language that no longer exists. But you understand every word, and just as quickly you're back. Back in your modern body. Back in your tourist clothes. Back in the morning wind. But something is not back with you. Something stayed behind. Or maybe something came with you instead. You step away from the stone, slowly, and the pyramid, impossibly, seems larger now, as if your recognition of it made it grow. Or perhaps the pyramid didn't grow. You simply shrank. You glance around. Still no one. Just sand and wind. But now the silence has an edge, a shape, as if the air itself is listening to you breathe. You wonder absurdly, seriously, if the pyramid is disappointed, that you didn't remember more, that you walked away so soon. You shake the thought off. Try to ground yourself. You reach for your phone. No signal. Of course, you begin walking around the base. You count your steps, half to calm yourself, half to listen to the rhythm of your own body. 17, 18, 19. The numbers become irrelevant. The pyramid has no entrance. Not here, but you feel it anyway. Somewhere behind the stone is a corridor. Somewhere deep below there's a room. And in that room, a name. Your name. Or the one you once carried. You stop again. Breathe deeper. The sun is higher now, but still soft. Golden. It paints the stones in long light, like the pyramid is being reawakened. Not by the sun, but by your gaze. And then you hear it, a sound, faint, not wind, not footsteps, not music. It's like a hum, but older, as if the stone itself is vibrating not from your touch, but from memory. You move closer, instinctively. You don't know what you're looking for, but your feet seem to. They guide you to a shadow, a sliver between stones, like an accidental crack, but it's not accidental. No, you kneel, peer into the dark slit, and for a moment you see something move, not outside, inside, not a figure, not a ghost, a glimpse of color, of walls, of a chamber so deep that time forgets how to measure it. But then it's gone. You pull back, breath shaky. Did you see it? Did you really? You're not sure, but your heart is. It beats faster now. Not from fear, from recognition. The pyramid has not revealed a secret. It has reminded you of one. And now, it waits, not for you to decode it, but for you to admit you have been here before. You stand again. The wind feels different now, like it's not just brushing past your ears, but carrying whispers. You don't understand the words, but you feel their shape. Curved, smooth, circular, like the coils of a scarab, or the curl of smoke from sacred incense. You turn, slowly. Behind you, the desert stretches timeless, indifferent. But ahead of you, ahead lies the unknown. Not forward, but inward. Because the truth is not inside the pyramid. The truth is the pyramid is inside you. And tonight, it has begun to remember itself. You are not a man. You are not a woman. You are not a name etched into stone or sung in the halls of the dead. You are something older. There is no inscription that mentions you. No scroll in the pharaoh's library. No priest dares whisper your legacy. Because you were never meant to be remembered, only to build what would never be forgotten. You wake before the sun has even touched the horizon. The sky is still dark, and the stars blink as if watching your breath rise into the cool desert air. You don't ask why. You never have. There is no mirror, no story, no self to return to. There is only the work. There has always been only the work. Your hands are thick, fingers split and wrapped in cloth, hardened by decades of lifting, shaping, and fitting limestone into angles the gods themselves once feared. The skin of your palms no longer registers heat or cold. They do not tremble. They simply obey. Your feet know the exact number of steps from your sleeping mat to the quarry wall. You have walked them so many times. They echo even in your dreams, and you dream often. Though you do not sleep much, you dream of things you've never seen: stars arranged in spirals, voices in forgotten dialects, a sound like wind inside metal. Sometimes, in these dreams, a voice says something strange. Do you know who you are? But in waking, you always forget the answer. They never gave you a name. Not truly. Some call you the left-handed one. Others call you that quiet one. But no name sticks. You are not like them. You do not drink with the men at dusk. You do not carve hearts into the stone or whisper about wives left in distant villages. You do not smile. You simply move. There is a strange peace in being unnamed. When there is no name, there is no story. And when there is no story, the soul is free to move like wind across the desert. You have become wind. The others whisper about you. He's seen it. One of them says, "What the chamber? The real one. Not for the dead, for the dreamers." And though they laugh, their eyes dart sideways when you pass. They are not wrong. Years ago, or was it weeks? Time is slippery here. You were called into the shadow of the king's steward. His eyes were black, not like darkness, but like obsidian, polished, patient, and hollow. You are the one who fits without questions, he said. You said nothing. He smiled like someone who has solved a riddle and pointed toward the desert. West, until the sun stops rising. You walked for 3 days. You found the site. You saw something. You carried it back, not in your hands, but in the way your shoulders shifted, as if bearing weight that no stone could match. They asked no questions, and you answered none. Now, you build. You stack stones so precisely they hum. Each block whispers into the one beside it, vibrating with some frequency not meant for mortal hearing. You feel it in your teeth, in your ribs. Some days, when the sun hits just right, the blocks seem to shimmer, like water frozen in a moment of stillness. The overseer watches you. His robes are red and gold, but they do not make him a master. You obey no man. You obey the structure. The pyramid is the true master. It tells you what to do. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes in the wind. You place one stone atop another, then another. The sound they make is like a soft exhale, like someone remembering something, like a god inhaling in reverse. You have no name, but your hands remember shapes no chisel has yet carved. You trace them into the dust at your feet while others rest. Spirals, stars, a hand inside a hand. At night, you do not sleep in the workers' camp. You sleep in a hollow you carved yourself, not near the quarry, not near the pyramid. Somewhere in between, a place with no path leading to it. You dream there, and in your dreams, the pyramid turns inside out. It breathes. It pulses. It remembers. It tells you, you are not just a builder. You are the bridge. You awake with your hands clenched. Inside your fist is sand. And in the sand is a tiny fossil, a shell. From where you don't ask. You bury it. The next morning, the block you carry fits perfectly into a place you have never seen. They say the pharaoh will live forever inside this monument. They are wrong. The pharaoh's bones will vanish, but your breath will echo in the joints of the stones long after his name is forgotten, because you were never meant to be seen, only to shape what would outlast sight. No songs, no carvings, no praises, just purpose. You are the silence that holds everything in place. And when your time is done, the desert will erase your body, your shelter, your footprints, but the pyramid will hum your rhythm forever. You were never given a name, because your name is the sound of the stone locking into eternity, and eternity does not need to be spoken aloud. Each stone holds a message from someone who never spoke aloud. You've walked along this corridor before. You think, or perhaps it was a dream. The sandstone walls curve inward slightly. Not enough to notice at first until you realize you're breathing a little shallower. The ceiling presses down as if the weight of history isn't just symbolic, but literal. You can smell limestone and something older, something like dry parchment, or the skin of time. Each brick, warm to your fingertips, hums softly. Not a sound, but a vibration. Not quite speech, yet something desperate to be heard. You reach your hand out again, and for a moment, you swear you feel a pulse, a quiet, irregular rhythm, like a memory trying to form. The builders didn't speak much here. Words wasted precious breath in heat and dust. Instead, they carved, they scratched, they pressed fingerprints into wet mortar, etching themselves quietly into eternity before the sun dried their marks into permanence. Somewhere between the layers of granite and silence, their stories remain. You can't read their language because it isn't written, not recorded, not coded, just a human pressure, a choice in the placement of every stone, a slight tilt of one block toward another, a mark where none was needed, intentions not instructions, feelings not functions. You pause in front of one stone, and there's a shallow curve, almost invisible, but you see it clearly now. It wasn't made by erosion or accident. No tool carved it. It was a hand, sliding downward during a long shift, a moment of exhaustion. A builder leaning on the stone just long enough to say, "Without words, I was here." I kept going. That curve, it's the echo of perseverance. Another block has a strange crack, not random. It fractured under pressure and was still placed anyway. That's not a mistake. That's defiance. Someone refused to discard it, silently insisting I matter. Even if I break, thousands of these stories hide between the bricks. No names, just breath and weight and willpower. And as you walk deeper, you realize something profound. This pyramid was never merely a tomb for royalty. It was a sanctuary for the unspoken thoughts of ordinary people, a vessel for whispers, a library of silent voices that history tried to forget. The air suddenly feels cooler, denser. It almost sounds as if the walls exhale. They remember. You pause and hold your breath. You listen closely. In the faint scrape of your sandals, you hear another footstep. Not behind you, not ahead, but beside you. A presence walking parallel yet invisible. That's when you understand clearly, this place was not meant to be explored. It was meant to be inhabited not by the living, not by the dead, but by something in between. Something that listens to footsteps like yours. Something that waits for quiet so it can whisper back. You close your eyes briefly. A single slow breath. And when you open them again, you notice a flicker in your peripheral vision like movement in shadow. You turn quickly. Nothing. But the feeling stays. You're not alone. You kneel, inspecting another block. This one has tiny lines, rhythmic scratches, deliberate and precise. Not words, not hieroglyphs, counting marks. Someone kept track of days, weeks, years. Why to remember the passage of time? Or to remind themselves time still passed, that one day their work here would be done. You run your fingertips over the tiny grooves. How many days? How many breaths? How many dreams etched into these shallow cuts? Your heartbeat quickens slightly. You rise and step back. The entire wall is a silent story. Thousands of hands once touched these stones, laying down their secrets without. The doorway does not open with your hands. There is no key, no lock, no creaking slab of stone to push aside. You don't step forward. You breathe. That's all. A quiet inhale, dusty with memory. And something shifts. Not in the wall, but inside your chest. The air here tastes like forgotten vowels, like ancient incense drifting inside your lungs. It doesn't matter what time it is, or whether the desert sun still burns above you. In this place, you are no longer bound by clocks or footsteps. The pyramid listens. It waits for a breath that knows the secret name not of the structure, but of the soul. You place your palm gently against the warm stone. It doesn't move, but the space does. You do. Not forward. Not through, but down. Inward. Like sinking into a memory you didn't know you carried. With each breath, something seems to loosen inside your ribs, as if your body is remembering a shape it once held in another life. Your mind quiets. Your thoughts slow. You don't ask to enter, you are invited. This is no door made of hinges or iron. This is no gate guarded by lions or pharaohs. This threshold was made for you alone, and it opens not to the strong or the chosen, but to the still. And so you breathe again, slower this time. Something ancient responds. You don't feel it in your ears. You feel it in your spine, in the hollow behind your heart. A hum that isn't sound, but memory vibrating, as if your bones remember the chisel that carved them, or the lullaby that once rocked you in a cradle of stars. You are standing still, yet falling softly into something older than gravity. Not darkness, not light, just a silence so complete. It seems to sing, and now the air shifts. There is no physical opening, but you feel it, a presence parting like gauze, like a curtain of time being drawn aside. You haven't moved, but suddenly you're standing inside something. A chamber. Yes, but not of this world. The stone around you feels more like thought than matter. Every block whispers, but not in words. It whispers in breath, in pulse, in that eerie knowing that comes before language. You realize this was never about entering a space. It was about remembering a frequency, a rhythm, a specific texture of awareness, like slipping into a dream where everything already knows you. You weren't knocking on a door. You were tuning yourself to the right silence. And once you did, the pyramid let you in. Not because it had to, but because you had become the kind of silence it could trust. You walk, or rather, you are carried. The floor beneath you doesn't feel solid. It feels like wind compacted into shape. You look around. No torches, no carvings, no directions. Just smooth stone, lit by something that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere. There's a glow here. But it's not of this world. It's the color of breath. The shade of things remembered just before waking. And then faintly you hear something. It's not music, not words, just a series of exhales, like a choir of lungs remembering how to exist. One breath rises, another responds, until a soft rhythm emerges like ocean waves echoing through sand that forgot it was once underwater. The pyramid is breathing, and you are inside its lung. You stop walking, not because there's an obstacle, but because something inside you knows this is the center. The space opens wider, and it feels less like a room and more like a heartbeat. Every wall curves inward, not claustrophobic cradling. This isn't architecture. It's a gesture. A stone womb that welcomes you back not as a guest, but as something returning to itself. And now finally you see it. A stone altar, low and ancient, resting quietly in the middle of the chamber. Not adorned with gold, no treasures, no names, just dust and silence, and the faint impression that someone knelt here once, thousands of years ago, perhaps yesterday. You move closer, not out of curiosity, but reverence. Your knees bend without you commanding them. Your hands rest on your thighs. Your breath slows even further. You're not praying, you're remembering, not a moment, not a name, but a knowing that this place was always inside you, that the gate you crossed was never physical. It was the distance between forgetting and remembering, between noise and breath. And as you sit in this quiet, something flickers in your chest, a single image, a flash, you or someone who looked like you standing under the sun, placing stones with other nameless workers, singing low songs in a tongue that tasted like copper and honey, laughing, sweating, building something you didn't understand but believed in. You weren't a priest, not a king, just one heartbeat in a choir of hands shaping forever. You blink, the image is gone, but the feeling remains not pride, not nostalgia, just rightness, as if your soul has snapped back into its original shape. And then, without warning, the chamber exhales. You feel the breath rush past you, not wind, but memory being released. The walls ripple slightly. A pulse moves through the floor. Not threatening, just complete. The pyramid has finished its part. You remembered. That was the price of passage. That was the key. No gold changed hands. No secrets were spoken. Just breath and being. And now, the gate is behind you. And it never really existed, because it was never the pyramid that opened. It was you. Before there was you, there was this silence. A silence so ancient. It sings. And as the stars shifted across the Nile sky, the sand already knew your name. Not your modern name, but the name of your essence. The one you've forgotten. You are not just walking into a story, you are returning to one. The pyramid doesn't see you as a visitor. It sighs as if greeting an old friend, recognizing the soul that once pressed its forehead to the stone and whispered mysteries into the heat. There is a reason why some doorways don't open until you close your eyes, because long before your first breath, there was breath here, the breath of those who built not from stone, but from silence, ritual, and memory. And among them, there was you. Your body was different. Yes, muscles tougher, feet bare, skin oiled by the desert sun. But your mind was already wandering, already wondering, already hearing voices the others could not. You were a question walking among answers carved in limestone. They didn't give you a name. You didn't need one. Your hand shaped the corners of unseen chambers. You placed small offerings in places no one would ever find, because they weren't meant to be found. They were meant to resonate softly, over millennia, until one day, you'd return. That day is now. The pyramid watches as you take each step. You think you are walking forward, but you are falling inward. The deeper you go, the more the past stirs. It doesn't speak in words. It hums, a low vibration behind your ribs, as if something you buried inside this stone labyrinth is beginning to wake. And then, the memory, not a picture, not a scene, a feeling, the feeling of being chosen for something sacred, though you never asked to be, of knowing that your work would vanish into myth, that your story would be eaten by time and still choosing to build, because it was never about being remembered. It was about remembering. You bend down and touch the dust with your fingertips, and it clings to you like recognition. The air grows warmer, thicker. The torches on the wall wait. Were there torches? Or is that the glow from inside your mind? Either way, there is light, and it's coming from within. You reach a wall. On it is a carving. Not elaborate, simple. A spiral. Your fingers trace it, and as you do, your breath slows. The spiral pulls you in. You don't remember carving it, but your body does. It's your signature in another lifetime. The muscle memory of meaning. Something inside you aches, not with pain, but with recognition too deep for thought. You're not emotional. You're eternal, and yet, your throat tightens. Your eyes water. It's as if a part of you waited lifetimes just for this, for the quiet proof that you were never crazy, that the dreams, the flashes of sand, the ache in your chest when you see stars, all of it was real. You were here, and not just as a worker, not just as a hand. You were the question that whispered itself into stone. You were the reason a chamber was built just a little off-center, because that asymmetry was sacred geometry. You didn't need to explain it. You simply knew. Now, the pyramid opens not a door, but a memory. You see the Nile in full flood, papyrus boats, the smell of wet reed and smoke. You see yourself, standing at the edge of the quarry, eyes fixed on the horizon like someone listening to instructions from a sky no one else could hear. This was your home, yes, but it was also your altar. Every brick you touched was a prayer. Every alignment you adjusted was a hymn. And somewhere in the back of your mind, even then, you knew it wouldn't last. That this empire would crumble. That time would turn your craft into conspiracy. That someday, someone would ask, how did they build this? Never knowing that you were the answer. Not your tools, not your equations. You were here before you were born. And now, you remember. There is something strangely tender about a tool abandoned in time. A chisel cracked down its spine. A shovel buried beneath the very dust it once pushed aside. A worn wooden handle, splintered by use but still cradling the ghost of a grip. If you could listen closely enough, they hum. Quietly, longingly. Not for purpose, but for touch. In the deep stillness of the pyramid's forgotten chamber, you see it a small iron shovel, half covered in limestone powder, half exposed like a bone. No one has held it in over 4,000 years. And yet, it waits. You kneel beside it without knowing why. You brush away the dust with your sleeve, and suddenly the air changes. The room sharpens, as if the walls are paying attention now. As if the past has turned its face toward you, because this is not just a tool. It is a memory disguised as an object. It once rested in the calloused hands of someone who looked up at the same stars you now dream beneath. Their hands were not poetic. Their spine was bent. Their feet calloused from heat. But when they dug, they were participating in something sacred. Not forced labor. Not simple survival. Creation. The shovel was not lifeless in their palm. It pulsed. It sang. It remembered. Every push into the soil was a soft defiance of impermanence. Every scoop of sand was a line in a poem written in silence. They weren't trying to leave a mark on history. They were simply trying to align the physical world with a spiritual blueprint, one handed down not by rulers, but by something older dreams. And yes, the tools dream too. You may laugh, but consider this: if an object can be made from will, shaped by intention, and touched by memory, does it not absorb soul? The worn edges of this shovel whisper of tired mornings. The copper flecks embedded in the wood hold a trace of sweat from a craftsman who once paused to look at the sky, thinking, "Will anyone ever know I was here?" He never got an answer. Until now, you hold the shovel gently, not as a relic, but as a conversation. And it responds, not in words, but in vibration. A warm trembling in your fingers, like a bell still echoing from a forgotten ceremony. Suddenly you see flashes, a field, a line of workers, laughter muffled by sun, the sound of sandals scraping stone, the way one man always sang under his breath while he dug, not because he had to, but because it helped him remember who he was beneath the toil. These memories don't belong to you, but the tool makes no distinction, because memory is generous. The shovel does not resent being forgotten. It dreams patiently. It carries the weight of 4,000 years without bitterness, not because it is noble, but because it was made to serve. And in service, it found meaning. Even now, buried under stone, unglorified, unnamed, it glows with something close to love. You set the shovel down gently, but it has already changed you. You no longer see ancient Egypt as a museum or a mystery. You see it as a lingering warmth, one that clings to metal, to wood, to dust. Even the inanimate remembers, and perhaps that's the strangest part of it all. It's not that the past is lost, it's that it's still here, humming just below the surface, waiting for a hand to touch a handle. And listen, it only happens once a year, and only if you're quiet enough to hear it, not with your ears, but with something deeper, as if a part of you that doesn't speak or see or think suddenly opens. On the longest night, under a moon sharpened by desert silence, the light touches the tip of the Great Pyramid not directly, but like a soft glance from the side. The sand shifts just slightly, the air thins, and for a moment so brief it can't be timed, the pyramid seems to draw breath. You feel it before you see it. A subtle pressure, like the earth itself pauses, a stillness that doesn't come from outside, but from somewhere inside you. Your thoughts slow. Your pulse echoes back. And then, as if the structure is more than stone, more than design, something stirs. Not in the stones, but in the space between them. The light passes, but its touch lingers. You are standing before a structure older than your memory and wiser than your language. No one knows what the pyramids truly were. Tombs, say some. Stargates, say others. A calendar, a message, a machine. The truth is more disorienting. They don't exist to answer. They exist to ask. They are questions you walk inside of. They are riddles made of angles and echoes. They are mirrors for the part of you you forgot how to see. Tonight, that mirror catches light. And suddenly, your outline shivers not from cold, but recognition. You've stood here before. You've knelt here, dreaming of building something eternal. You were not a pharaoh, not a king, not even a priest. You were something quieter, the one who watched, and remembered, and waited. The moonlight moves like a whisper. It touches the apex, then draws a perfect triangle down the eastern edge. This angle, this time, this direction, it was calculated by minds that read the stars like poems. The ancient builders didn't guess. They listened. They waited for the night when the eye would open, not literally, but cosmically, when above and below would align for just a breath. And in that breath, everything changes. The air feels thinner now. Not less oxygen, just less weight. You feel lighter, but not empty. More like a vessel. You inhale and it feels like you're inhaling something you didn't know you were missing. A scent of burnt myrrh. A hum of copper. A pressure behind your eyes that could be memory. Or light. This is not hallucination. It's recognition. Because the pyramid is not just a thing. It's an event. And tonight, you've stumbled into it. Some say the ancients aligned the pyramids to Orion's belt. That the three great structures mirror the stars not out of tribute, but out of participation. They weren't copying the sky, they were syncing with it. The angle of the shafts, the slope of the walls, the dimensions of the base all tuned like strings to cosmic chords. This isn't architecture. It's a symphony carved in stone. And when moonlight passes just so the music plays again, you can't hear it with ears. But your bones remember the frequency. You step closer. The stone doesn't feel like stone. It feels like warmth pressed into form. Every surface still holding the touch of hands long gone. Hands that shaped blocks for gods they feared and futures they couldn't name. Why did they build it so exact? Why were they obsessed with aligning to true north? To Sirius? To the solstices? Maybe because they knew time isn't just a straight line, it's a loop of echoes. And tonight, under this moon, the echo returns. You glance upward. The pyramid cuts the sky like a blade made of patience. It does not shine. It absorbs. And then it gives. Just once, in this light, you see something move. Not in the physical sense, but inside the angles. Like a flicker of awareness. A glance back, and you know it sees you too. Not the you in clothes and skin, but the older version. The one made of silence and memory. The one who chose to return here tonight. And in that moment, everything around you, sand, wind, time hushes. Even the stars seem to blink slower. And you hear a sound that doesn't sound like anything. A sound of yes. No questions. No fear. Just yes. You breathe in, and it breathes back. The pyramid does not move, but your perception does. You're no longer looking at it. You're inside the gaze of it. And it feels like falling upward. Like remembering something before it happened. The edges blur. Your name blurs. But what's left is sharper than ever. You feel, for a moment, that you are part of something not just ancient, but continuous. And then the moon shifts. The line of light slides away from the apex. The glow softens. The breath fades. It doesn't vanish. It returns underground, like a serpent curling beneath sand. But you remain changed. Because the pyramid didn't just show you something, it let you remember. And now, the forgetting begins again, but slower, softer. You step back, unsure if you stepped forward. The sand shifts beneath your feet, not randomly, but like it knew you'd land here. And behind your ribs, something glows. Not warmth, not thought, just awareness. You are the light. And the pyramid, the eye, it blinked for you. And now it sleeps again. But you won't. Not quite. Not ever the same. You didn't mean to breathe it in. It was just a sigh. A momentary pause. A whisper in the stillness. But the air inside this corridor isn't just air. It's old breath. Ancient breath. Dust and soul mingled in a final exhale. Carried forward through centuries. Waiting for someone like you. Your lips part. Your lungs fill. And something enters you that is not entirely yours. This is not mere sand in the wind. This is memory suspended in time flecks of gold no wider than a grain of silence, drifting between chiseled walls and broken shadows. The pyramid isn't empty. It is full of what once was breath, intention, prayer, The dust glitters faintly as if catching a light source you can't quite see. And as it settles inside you, so does a question: who was the last to breathe this in? Perhaps it was a dying priest, leaning against the stone, one hand pressed to his chest as he whispered something to no one. Perhaps it was a child running barefoot through the halls during construction, chasing laughter into the shadows. Or perhaps it was not human at all, but the pyramid itself, exhaling once, before falling silent for 1,000 years. You take another breath, slower this time, deliberate. There's something else in it now, a sweetness, not perfume, not spice, but something mineral, warm, like the air after a lightning storm, or the scent of sun-baked rock just before twilight. It smells like endings and beginnings. The golden dust enters your bloodstream not as a particle, but as a message. There are no words, only impressions: a heavy crown made of reed and gold, a palm pressed into still wet plaster, the echo of drums beating not to celebrate, but to bury. You see it all, not with your eyes, but with your pulse. And now you understand. This is not decay. This is ritual. The dead were not placed here to sleep. They were placed here to breathe, to continue, to cycle, to be re-inhaled by the living, to teach in silence. The pyramid, it turns out, is a giant lung. It expands slowly over centuries. It holds breath, memory, scent, and decay. And then, in the quietest moment, it exhales. And you happen to be here when it does. You think of your own breath now, how invisible it is, how taken for granted. But inside this place, breath becomes sacred, trapped between stone and shadow. Your every exhale could become someone else's inheritance. 1,000 years from now, could someone breathe you in? Could you become someone's vision, their déjà vu, their nameless shiver in a dark hallway? The thought makes your fingers tingle. You run them along the surface of the wall. The limestone is dry, coarse, but underneath the grit is a smoothness, as if someone had once polished it with devotion. You imagine them a woman, perhaps, her hair bound tightly, her hands moving in circles, chanting under her breath, pressing oil into the walls not as decoration, but as offering. Did she exhale too? Did she know that breath lingers longer than memory? There are inscriptions here, not in language, but in rhythm. The grooves of tools, the unevenness of stone, the echo of footfalls on the ground, all of it forms a kind of breathless music. You are not listening with your ears. You are listening with your bones, and they are humming. There is gold in this dust. You're sure of it. Not the gold of coins or crowns, but the gold that comes from something rare and irreplaceable. Final breath, final intention. The last thing someone gave before they vanished. It is the essence of reverence, the perfume of purpose. You wonder, briefly, if this is what immortality actually means. Not living forever, but being breathed in by someone who never knew your name and still felt your heartbeat. There's something warm on your face. You think it might be tears, but it could also be condensation from the walls. The pyramid is cooler now, as if exhaling cooled it. Or perhaps you're simply warmer. Your breath has become part of something older than time. You don't speak. You wouldn't dare. The silence here is not emptiness. It is fullness holding its breath. And you are the only one who notices it. The only one still enough to hear the exhale. Still enough to receive it. You close your eyes, and in the darkness behind your lids, you see something golden, not light, not flame, but breath itself, floating through centuries, looking for a place to land. It has found you, and now, You are breathing for two. There is no map for where you are now. No signage. No end point. Just a corridor of stone that hums softly with warmth and absence. You're not walking to escape, and you're not walking to arrive. You're walking because your feet are remembering something your mind has not yet caught up to. The walls beside you are etched in dust and half-light. Patterns not meant to be read, but to be felt. The path curves slightly left, then slightly right, as though the pyramid itself doesn't want you to get there too quickly if there even is a there. Each step echoes faintly, but the echo doesn't come back to you. It disappears somewhere deeper, swallowed. The sound doesn't reflect, it dissolves. The air is thick with ancient warmth, like the inside of a sealed jar that's just been opened. There's no breeze, and yet you feel something move. You pause. There is a painting not drawn in color, but pressed into the stone with fingertip-sized dents, like someone long ago had tried to carve a thought using only their hands. You can't tell what it is. A river. Maybe. A line of people. A wing. Or is it just a texture? A braille for ghosts. You reach out and touch it. Your fingers don't find answers, but they find rhythm. The dips and grooves feel like the breath of someone speaking without sound. You find yourself pressing your palm against the wall not to read it, but to remember it. And then, without knowing why, you keep walking. The corridor stretches on, but it doesn't lead out. It doesn't lead down. It doesn't even seem to lead forward in the way that time does. Instead, it folds around you like a loop, like a thought you keep returning to late at night, one you never finish, but also never escape. That's when you realize this hallway doesn't lead to a chamber. It is the chamber, the moment, the destination. It's not about arrival. It's about continuation. The pyramid is not a place with rooms and corridors and secret passageways. The pyramid is feeling frozen into architecture. And this hallway is not where they buried the body. It's where they buried the longing, the not quite said, the grief that didn't fit in words. And it is that which you are walking through now. There's a small, nearly invisible groove in the floor. You step over it, and for a split second, the scent in the air changes just faintly, from warm stone to dried lotus, from silence to the faintest hum, as if someone behind the wall has begun a chant you can't quite hear. Is the hallway responding to you, or are you only now beginning to hear what was always there? You think of a time you once walked like this. Maybe not here, maybe not in this lifetime, but somewhere in a dream, or a fever, or a childhood memory you were too young to name. That feeling of moving forward, not to find something, but because your heart whispered, there's something just ahead, even if nothing ever appears. That's what this corridor is. A soft haunting, not of ghosts, but of emotion. The kind that never made it into stories. The grief of a scribe who misspelled a name. The love of a craftsman who carved a wall for someone who never came. The shame of a girl who wasn't allowed inside, but came anyway and touched the stone at night. Their stories aren't in any scroll, but you feel them here. You feel them in the slope of the ceiling, the taper of the walls, the way the path seems to sigh when you step too hard. And then for just a moment you feel it. A rush, a pull, like something has recognized you. Like something in the corridor has paused and tilted its head. Curious, not malevolent, not demanding, just aware. You stop, and in that moment, all sound drains out. You can hear your own breathing. You can hear your heart not pounding, but soft, steady, like it too has joined the architecture. And within that silence, another sound begins. fainter than wind, older than echo. It is not coming from outside you. It's rising from within. It is the feeling, not a memory, but the sensation of one. You're not being reminded of a time, you're being pulled into a texture, a pressure, a warmth that once was a moment in someone's life, or maybe your own. But it doesn't matter whose. It has detached from identity. It simply wants to be felt again. It's the feeling of waiting beside someone you love, not knowing if they'll return. It's the scent of candle wax and stone sweat and whispered goodbye. It's the moment just before a name is spoken or forgotten. That is what this corridor holds. You continue walking, and the floor begins to slant upward barely, as though rising back into a thought you buried long ago. The walls narrow slightly. Your shoulders are closer to the stone. It feels like you're being guided through the throat of something that once wept. There's no inscription here, no markers, nothing to record what this hallway was for. But maybe it was never meant to be recorded. Maybe it was only meant to be felt. And maybe, just maybe, that's what pyramids really are. Not tombs, not traps, not monuments to kings, but sanctuaries of feelings that had nowhere else to go. So you keep walking, not to escape, not to arrive, but to feel. Because somewhere in this corridor, a memory that doesn't belong to you is waiting, and it needs to be felt by someone, by anyone, by you. In the long hush of centuries, there was one presence beside you that never asked questions, never offered a name, never sought reward, but never once left your side. A figure. Sometimes a blur in the corner of your eye. Sometimes a shoulder brushing against yours when the sun was too hot and the sand bit into your skin like salt. They labored with you, step for step, breath for breath, yet you never asked who they were. Because somehow, you already knew. They arrived with no ceremony, no welcome. Just another pair of hands, rough and cracked, carrying the weight of limestone blocks like the rest of you. And yet, their silence echoed louder than all the chants of the overseers, louder than the clatter of hammers and groan of lifting ropes. In that silence lived something ancient, something known, something trusted. You remember how they moved with rhythm, like someone born from the same dust that filled your lungs. They were always there when your strength faltered, catching the edge of a block before it fell. Not a word, just a glance, not a smile, just presence. On days when your body screamed under the sun and your mind drifted toward despair, they stood beside you, unshaken, a quiet anchor in the shifting sands. Once, in the quiet before dawn, a chisel snapped in your hand and the shard sliced deep across your thumb. Blood welled instantly. You winced, more from the shock than pain. Without hesitation, they tore a strip from their own linen wrap and wordlessly wrapped your hand. The knot was tight, precise. No words passed between you. Just breath, just time. There was something sacred in their restraint, as if they knew words could not hold the meaning that sweat and stone could. Together you built not just walls, not just passageways, but meaning. A quiet partnership formed not in speech, but in the language of effort. When a block shifted perfectly into place, you'd catch their nod from the corner of your eye, a small ritual of approval that meant more than any applause. You didn't know where they slept. You didn't ask. But in the mornings, when the horizon burned gold and the earth stretched its limbs, they were already beside you, tightening the ropes, ready for another day of anonymous eternity. And then, one day, they weren't. No cry, no collapse, no burial. Just absence. You looked to your side and the space was empty. The tools still gleamed with sand-polished edges. The rhythm of labor went on, but crooked. A beat missing from the song of construction. You felt it in your muscles, in your breathing, in the way the sun suddenly felt less like fire and more like memory. They had left nothing behind but the weight of their presence now transformed into a strange, soft ache, a haunting, but not the kind that frightens, the kind that reminds that someone was once here, that someone saw you, knew your rhythm, matched it. Years passed. The blocks continued to rise. Names changed. Overseers aged. The wind shifted, but the echo of their silence never faded. In every stone you touched afterward, in every pause before lifting, in every moment you chose quiet over noise they lived. You still catch yourself glancing to your side now and then, expecting that familiar figure, that quiet breath, that nod. And when you find only sand, you nod to yourself instead. Because the companion who never looked back, never needed to, they never had to say goodbye. Their presence was never about permanence. It was about alignment, about meeting someone in the middle of the hardest task you'd ever face, and realizing that sometimes the deepest connections speak nothing at all. Now, when your own hands grow slower and the stone feels heavier, you wonder if someone else will glance your way. If your silence will one day echo through the corridors of memory like theirs does through you. Because the greatest companions are not remembered by their names, but by the way their silence reshaped your soul. The wind doesn't shout in the desert. It doesn't crash or rage. It whispers slow, deliberate, and dry, brushing over dunes like fingers over parchment. And you walk through it. Your robes pulled tight, your eyes squinting against the sun. And you listen, because something is calling. It begins with a hollow sound, not quite a voice, not quite silence, as if the land itself is breathing through ancient cracks. You pause beside a half-buried stone, shaped not by nature, but by intention. A chisel mark, curved just so. A forgotten line of script that peeks from beneath a skin of sand, exposed by the latest sigh of wind. You crouch and brush gently. The grains shift like sleep, and suddenly, something speaks, not in words, but in presence. A shape emerges, part of a symbol, worn and uneven. It feels like déjà vu, like something you've seen not in this life, but in the moment between two dreams. The desert doesn't give you answers, only clues. Always clues. You look out across the horizon, endless, golden, still, and wonder how many secrets are buried just beneath the surface. How many stories lie pressed between layers of silence and heat? The stones do not speak loudly. They require stillness. They require waiting. They require faith, and the wind, in its wandering, sometimes pulls back the veil. You think of the old ones, the carvers, the painters, the nameless engineers of spirit and structure. Did they know the sand would cover their words? Did they accept it, knowing that erosion was just another kind of ceremony? That one day, when the time was right, the wind would come like a careful archivist and reveal them again. You imagine the wind as a kind of priest, not of flesh and bone, but of rhythm and patience. It reveals only what is ready to be seen. It uncovers slowly, lovingly, as if unwrapping a soul that has waited too long in the dark. And you, dusty, tired, curious, are its witness. You've seen it before. A temple doorway, once invisible, suddenly framed in shadow when the angle of the sun shifted. A face carved into stone, emerging for only an hour before being swallowed again. Footsteps etched in limestone, preserved by accident, then forgotten by time. This desert is not dead. It breathes. And it remembers, sometimes, when the wind rises just right. You hear laughter faint, like a memory not your own. Children playing, water being poured, a brushstroke, a prayer. You are not hallucinating. You are remembering what the land has always known. You sit down now, resting beside a half-fallen pillar, and close your eyes. You let the sand tickle your ankles, the sun warm your back, the wind wrap around your ears like a slow, sacred lullaby. You do not force understanding. You let it arrive on its own, in its own time. Like all things in the desert must, something shifts beneath you, a tiny tremor. Maybe nothing. Maybe the wind. Maybe more. You open your eyes, and in front of you, a carving that was once invisible now glows faintly in the slant of sunlight. It's simple, a spiral, wrapped in dots, a symbol for journey, or soul, or breath. It doesn't matter what it means exactly. It means what it means now in this moment, in this light, in this breath you share with the sand and stone. You trace it with your finger. The stone is warm, soft with age. You whisper thank you. And then, because the wind has moved on, you rise. You walk again. Your shadow long behind you. The desert, unchanged to most, has changed something in you. A new mark, a new feeling, a new sound lingers in your chest. You came seeking history, but what you found was the quiet mercy of being present when a secret decides it's time to be seen. And in this desert of sleeping ruins and quiet winds, you now know the stone never forgot. It was simply waiting for you. It stands alone, a single column where once there were many, fluted, time-worn, a soft beige now kissed permanently by sun. And though the others have crumbled or vanished beneath sandstorms and seasons, this one remains upright, quiet, and waiting. You walk toward it slowly, not out of reverence, but out of memory. Because you've been here before, not yesterday, not last year, not even in this life, perhaps. But your body remembers the turn in the path, the silence around the ruin, the shadow this column casts in early afternoon. And your hand remembers too, without thinking. You reach out and place your palm against its surface. There is no carving, no inscription, no ceremonial mark to claim significance. And yet, the stone feels familiar, like the skin of an old friend, or the cool spine of a worn book you've read countless times. You press your hand flat. The stone is warm. Your fingers settle into the slight curve where weather has smoothed the once sharp grooves. And for a moment, your breath stills. There it is, that strange sensation behind your ribs. Not quite emotion, not quite pain. More like the awareness of something shifting within your chest. As if a door that's long been shut just cracked open the tiniest amount. As if someone knocked gently from the inside. You don't pull your hand away. Instead, you close your eyes. And you remember. You remember standing here once, laughing. Not in the stillness of today, but in a long-gone moment when the city around this column was alive, full of voices and footsteps, aromas from nearby hearths, songs drifting through archways. Your fingers had gripped this column then, not in nostalgia, but in celebration. You had danced beside it, leaned on it, hidden behind it during games. Or was that someone else? Another you, another time, another rhythm of being. But the Palmprint remembers. It remembers touch. It remembers joy. And it remembers sorrow, too. Because later, when the city was dimming, your hand found the column again. This time trembling. This time alone. Maybe you had returned after many years. Maybe you had found it after exile. or war, or simply forgetting. You reached out just as you do now and pressed your palm to the same spot. To be sure it still existed. To be sure you still existed. And now, standing here again, centuries later, or perhaps merely in dream, the ritual repeats. You breathe in deeply. The scent of dry stone and wind-blown sagebrush fills your lungs, and you feel a thread tug inside you, thin, golden, trembling with age, connecting past to present, body to memory, spirit to silence. You open your eyes. The column remains unchanged. It does not glow. It does not speak. But it has held you, every version of you, like a sacred witness. It has asked nothing in return. Not your name. Not your devotion. Only that you remember to come back. Only that you place your hand once more. You step back, lowering your arms slowly. The imprint lingers, not visibly on the stone, but within you as a sensation, a pressure, a gentle ache of recognition. You smile not because you're happy, exactly, but because something inside you exhales, a release of something long held and unnamed. And as the wind moves again through the ruins, whispering through arches and fallen walls, you realize this place never needed a monument. It had your hand, and that was enough. You don't remember the song. Not exactly. But somehow your feet move in time with it. There's no drum here, no lyre, no chime swaying from papyrus twine. But something inside your ribs begins to pulse anyway, not like a heartbeat, but like a memory with a rhythm older than your name, older than language, older than even the stars that still blink faintly above this forgotten chamber. The corridor is tight, curved like the inside of a rib cage. The limestone walls seem to flex as you pass, like they too are breathing. You slow your steps. You place your hand on the stone. It's warm, almost soft. It hums not in pitch, but in pressure, the way a cat hums when curled in sunlight. The vibration isn't from sound. It's from presence. A pattern in the air. A cadence of something unspoken but deeply felt. The breath you just took, that was part of it. Here, music isn't something you hear. It's something you join. Long ago, there were others here, not performers, but participants. Workers who sang without voice, whose bodies moved in silence, yet left behind rhythms that still echo inside these tunnels. Not on purpose, not out loud, but through the tilt of a shoulder, the press of a foot, the angle of a stone set into place with precise exhaustion. You feel it in your spine now, that tilt, that press. Your back instinctively curves the same way. You become aware of how your shoulder blades sit. You shift, ever so slightly, into alignment with the memory of another. You're not mimicking, you're remembering. Inhale, step, pause, press, exhale. The dance of the builders had no spectators. There was no applause, no pause for praise. And yet the rhythm governed everything: the laying of bricks, the lifting of beams, the carrying of water. Like ants synchronized by scent. These builders were choreographed by something invisible, a time signature too ancient for clocks. You pass a niche in the wall. It's small, waist height. And though no statue remains, the dust forms a clear outline. Knees bent, torso forward, arms outstretched. It wasn't a statue. It was a man resting, perhaps for just a moment. But the air remembers his posture, and now, so do you. You crouch instinctively, not out of obedience, but resonance. Your arms settle into the same shape. And suddenly, it's as if your breath falls into perfect tempo with a wind long gone. The room opens slightly. like a breath released after holding. It is circular, empty, but not silent. The floor is marked with soft indentations, the erosion not of tools, but of footfalls. Over years, over decades, over lifetimes. The bodies that passed through here left grooves too subtle to see from above, but you feel them underfoot, like a lullaby carried by stone. You walk them, not because you know where they go, but because your legs remember. And as you circle, slow and barefoot, a strange warmth rises from your chest. It feels like sound, not in your ears and your blood. A pulse, then another, and then a second pulse. Not your own. At first, you think it's your echo. Then, a drum, no. Still no instrument. Just a memory vibrating in rhythm with yours. They danced here. You realize, not for celebration, not for entertainment, but because the body needed to move in order to endure. Rhythm made labor holy. A beat made suffering singable. Without it, the bricks would have broken their backs. With it, the backs became instruments. Even the breath, the most private music, was shared. One would exhale, and another would inhale, as if passing rhythm through lungs. You begin to sway, gently, unsure why. It's like catching a rhythm in the dark. You close your eyes, and that's when it begins. The floor not trembling, not shifting, but joining you. The echo beneath your feet doesn't follow you. It anticipates you. One step left, 2 steps forward, half step to the side. Your arms rise slowly, as if underwater. You feel no resistance, but also no freedom. You're being carried, or maybe remembered. Maybe you've danced this exact pattern before, centuries ago, barefoot in this same dust, somewhere. Far off, a breath is released. You don't hear it, but you feel it move across your skin. The rhythm has returned. You are not alone. They are not here in body, but in pulse, in breath, in the shape your arms now make as they curve toward the ceiling. They taught you this not with words, not with song, but with the repetition of movement inscribed into space. Like a shell remembers the shape of the tide. And you, now, are a tide inside a shell. The moment stretches. It's not music, but it is. No composer wrote this. No choir sang it. No instrument made it. But it plays on, and you, just like them, move to it. A rhythm of breath, of weight, of quiet. The pyramid does not hum. The walls do not echo. But something behind your ribs keeps pulsing. And when you stop moving, it doesn't. You kneel in the center of the circle, not to pray, not to pose, but because that's where the rhythm ends or begins. The floor is warm beneath you, not from sun, but from memory. And you sit, and you breathe, and you listen to a music that doesn't exist and yet never ends. There is a doorway in the pyramid that no one speaks of, not because it is forbidden, but because it cannot be found by sight alone. It lies behind a shift in temperature, behind the sensation of being watched by something not alive. It hums in the bones, rather than the ears. And unlike other corridors, it doesn't ask for permission. It waits. For one thing, for a feeling you've forgotten how to feel. You stumble across it not by accident, but by ache. The ache you carry when you dream of someone whose face you no longer remember. The one you still love, though their name dissolves each time you wake. That ache, that exact tremor of the chest is the key. There are no inscriptions, no torches. The walls of this passage are smooth and disinterested, as though they were not carved by hands, but simply decided to exist the moment your emotion returned. You take one step in, then another. The light behind you grows dim, but not because of distance. It's as if the memory you awakened is swallowing illumination not from spite, but from necessity. You are not here to see. You are here to feel. A wave rises in your throat. Not panic, not dread. Something older, softer, a longing without a source. It brushes the edges of your ribs like hands you once trusted. You remember nothing, and yet, your skin remembers everything. The more you let yourself feel, the wider the corridor becomes. As if your vulnerability stretches the stone. The more you try to understand, the narrower it becomes, as if intellect is a poison to this place. Eventually, the corridor curves not left or right, but inward. You're walking into yourself. You don't question how. You've always known that emotions carve deeper than tools. A breeze passes through. It smells like your grandmother's voice, like rain on a clay jar, like a single tear someone shed while watching the sunrise. Alone. Thousands of years ago, you hear a faint chime, but there's no instrument, only a pulse in the wall that echoes the beat of your heart when you were 7. You remember that beat. It was the first time you ever felt disappointment. The first time something was taken before you understood what it was. And that was the feeling you buried. It wasn't rage or despair. It was simpler, more fragile, the quiet confusion of innocence fading. That was the price you paid to survive. And that is what this corridor feeds on. You exhale, slowly, and you feel the passage sigh with you. A breeze returns, and for a moment, you see something flicker at the far end of the corridor. Not a door, not a light, a shape, a shadow. Familiar. You walk toward it, but it doesn't grow clearer. The closer you move, the more it dissolves. Not in fear, but in trust. As if it waited all this time only to say, "You're finally here," and then leave. Because the corridor was never meant to be reached. It was meant to be remembered. And as you turn around, the walls have vanished. You're standing in the sand, the pyramid behind you, but your ribs feel lighter. As if someone quietly returned something you thought was lost. Not an object, a feeling. There's a section of the temple wall that always feels warmer than it should. Even when the wind bites or the night swallows every ounce of heat. This small circle of limestone holds something tender, as if the sun whispered a secret into it. And it never let go. You find it by chance. Or perhaps, it finds you. Your palm hovers over the smooth surface, drawn not by logic, but by longing. It doesn't look different. No mark, no glyph, no discoloration. But your fingertips tingle before they even touch, as if they remember something you don't. And then you press, softly, cautiously, reverently. The warmth is real, alive, but it's not heat, not entirely. It's memory disguised as temperature. It's the echo of skin that once rested here. Hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago. Someone stood exactly where you are now. Someone leaned against this very wall, tired or hopeful or grieving. And the stone remembered. You close your eyes. Suddenly, you see nothing, but you feel everything. The hand was smaller than yours. Maybe a child. Or maybe it belonged to someone older, with bones that had learned gentleness through suffering. The hand lingered here, not in desperation, but in pause, a breath between moments. Maybe they had just lost someone. Maybe they had just found something. It doesn't matter. What matters is they left behind not their story, but their warmth. You feel a pulse in your palm, not your own. The stone is responding, not with movement or light, but with presence, as if it's holding your hand in return. As if it recognizes that you too have carried things you couldn't speak aloud. It doesn't ask what you've lost. It doesn't ask what you seek. It simply stays. There's something holy about this silence, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of shared weight. The kind of quiet that doesn't erase pain, but wraps it in linen and tucks it into a chamber that no tomb can hold. You feel the pressure shift, not heavier, just deeper. And then, a breath. Yours, theirs, the stones. You open your eyes. Your hand is still there, pressed into ancient wall. But now, there's a faint shimmer across the stone. Not light, but something more subtle. Like dust dancing in air that forgot it was supposed to be still. A whisper of movement. A signal. A sigh. The warmth begins to fade, not vanish, just recede. Like a soul pulling back into a place you can no longer follow. But before it goes, it leaves something in your palm. Not an object. Not a sign. Just a feeling like the quiet hush of forgiveness. You lower your hand. The wall is cool again, but you are not. Inside you, something has shifted. A stone has been removed. A gate unlatched. The warmth wasn't just in the stone, it was in you. Or perhaps, it always was. You walk away, not lighter, but more whole. And though no one will ever see what just happened, your hand will remember. It always will. And now, a quiet moment before we move on. You lean closer to the surface again. Not because you're searching, but because it's already begun revealing. Your breath doesn't fog it. Your warmth doesn't move it. Yet the image shifts when you do, like it's tethered not to your skin, but to something deeper. The slab seems to shimmer ever so slightly, not from light, but from attention. You are being studied just as you study, and then the reflection changes, not in shape, not in gesture, but in intention. The figure mimics you. Yes, but with the wrong rhythm. When you tilt your head, it pauses. When you exhale, it inhales. The gesture is there. But something else is behind the glassless surface, a time-delayed memory that lives backward. What you're seeing isn't a trick. It's a version of you before a choice you've yet to make. In that moment, you become aware of how ancient your indecision is. The person in the slab holds a question behind their eyes, one you've carried for so long that you forgot it had an origin. But now, here in this silent chamber of sun-warmed limestone and buried breath, it's offered back to you. Will you remember? A breeze from somewhere invisible glides across your neck like a whispered answer. There's no draft, just a reminder. You blink and your reflection blinks later. You raise your hand, and it mirrors you, but this time, with a small delay and then a second gesture added. One you didn't perform. Fingers curl inward, as if clutching something, and your own hand almost involuntarily responds. Not in fear, not in mimicry, but in recognition. What is it holding? A small gold ring, a crumpled papyrus, a stone bead with the symbol of air. No, none of those. It's holding an emotion you've buried, the soft ache of leaving something behind that was sacred and unspeakable. A person, a path, a version of yourself you promised not to forget. Suddenly, you understand the slab isn't a mirror. It's a threshold, not for feet, for memory. This is why there is no glass. There doesn't need to be. It is not about looking at your face. It is about seeing what stands just behind your skin, that gentle, trembling consciousness that existed before names and beyond sound. And as you stare into the strange reflection, your breath catches, not because you're afraid, because you recognize what it means to finally meet the echo. Your reflection smiles not wide, not smug, but gently. Like a mother seeing her child return after lifetimes of wandering. The smile says you are still carrying it. Even after all this time, you find yourself smiling back, and as you do, The entire slab seems to pulse once not a light, not a sound, just a small internal permission. The chamber is warmer now. You don't remember moving your feet, but you're closer than before. So close your nose almost touches the stone. And the surface, though still flat, begins to ripple. Not physically, emotionally. You can feel it. You can feel it feeling you. You know how absurd that sounds, yet here, it's not absurd at all. Here, it's inevitable. You let out a breath, slow, measured, intentional, and the image fades, not like a vanishing, but like a retreat, as if it's returning to a place where it waits. A library behind skin, a memory wrapped in linen. You reach out, not to summon it again, but to thank it. Your fingers touch the slab and it's just stone. Cool, unmoving, dusty, yet you can still feel the impression of a heartbeat that wasn't yours, but was. You lower your hand, and something flickers in your ribs. A pressure, a presence like someone watching from within. You realize the figure isn't gone. It's walked back inside you. It's waiting now, just beneath your waking self. For the moment, you'll ask the right question again. A question not of identity, but of reunion. You turn away, but slower than before. You feel taller now, not in body, but in memory. Something remembered you, and in doing so, reassembled you. The slab is behind you, but the reflection is not. It walks with you now, barefoot, silent, ancient, and somehow smiling. You descend again. You've lost track of how many levels deep this place has taken you. The steps beneath your feet are shallow and wide, worn smooth by thousands of quiet feet before yours. You walk as if in a dream, one hand brushing the wall-cold limestone, then warm sandstone, then something else. A darker stone, slick to the touch, almost like glass that was never polished. There is no torch in your hand, no shaft of sunlight from above, no natural crack in the rock offering the mercy of moonlight. And yet you begin to see, not all at once. It's not like flipping on a light or opening your eyes. It's more like remembering how to see. Shapes begin to suggest themselves. A pattern carved low along the floor. A swirl etched onto the corner of a block you almost missed. You realize slowly that this room, impossibly, is lit from within. There is no source, no lamp, no flame. The glow feels like it's seeping out of the walls themselves. Not bright, but persistent like breath vapor in winter. A soft silver mist floats just barely above the floor, and you wonder if it is real mist or light pretending to be. You step forward. The room is round, a circle inside the square temple, a secret womb carved into the geometry of power. Your steps make no sound here, not even the quiet crunch of grit or the rustle of your sleeve. It's as if this room has absorbed sound the way it absorbs sunlight and replaces both with something else entirely. There are markings on the walls, but they don't resemble hieroglyphs, not even proto-writing. They seem more like fingerprints, smudges, as if someone pressed their hands into the stone after dipping them into memory. You draw closer and feel it. A vibration in your chest, so subtle you might confuse it for emotion. But it's not yours. This room is remembering, and you are what it remembers. A low arch rises near the back, the suggestion of a portal, though it leads nowhere. Just more smooth wall beyond. But still, you find yourself drawn to it. As you near it, the glow becomes stronger, not brighter, but deeper. It thickens. You feel it settle onto your skin like ash. And that's when the sensation arrives. Someone or something is behind you. Not walking, not breathing, but present. You do not turn. You do not need to. You know. You remember. They stood here with you once, a long time ago, perhaps last night, perhaps 5,000 years before you were born. A worker, a priest, a twin. You don't know, but they were with you, and they are with you still. You touch the wall, warm, impossibly, like touching a rock left out in the sun. But this room never meets the sun. It hasn't in millennia. And yet it holds warmth as if it was kissed by daylight just moments ago. You close your eyes, and in that moment it happens. You feel your heartbeat slow, not stop, but lengthen, as if your body is synchronizing with something older. A rhythm that predates blood and breath. Something beneath the glow pulses, not in time with you. You in time with it. You are no longer standing on stone. You are standing on an idea. The idea that something sacred, ancient can outlive death by simply remembering how to glow. This was not a tomb. This was not a vault. This was a chamber for transformation. A place to forget the body and remember the self. And now it remembers you. The air hums. Your fingertips feel as if they are no longer entirely yours. They ache with memory, not pain, but a yearning you cannot name. You reach out and place both palms on the wall beneath the arch. The glow strengthens, but only inside your mind. The room does not change. You do. You see a flash not of light, but of certainty. You see the stone being carved. Slowly, carefully, not with tools, but with breath, with intention, with something like love. And you see yourself, or someone that looks like you, in silence, working alongside others. No words spoken, just the rhythm of hands, of hearts, of tasks older than language. This place was made not to last, but to remember. And it has. You lean forward. Your forehead rests against the stone. Your breath slows again, this time into something dreamlike, almost like sleep, but deeper. And then for just a moment you hear it. Music, not of instruments, not of song, but of movement. The faintest echo of footsteps, the whisper of fabric against stone, the inhale of someone who once stood exactly where you are standing now. You open your eyes, and everything is still, except for one thing. The glow pulses once, a heartbeat, yours. Or the room's. Does it matter? You were never separate. You were never meant to forget. But you did, and that's why the room was built. Not to entomb, not to impress, but to remind, to wait quietly, without light, without time for the one who would return not seeking treasure, but memory. You step back. The glow follows you, gently, like the echo of your own breath. It does not chase. It does not beg. It simply watches. You walk away slower now. Your shadow, somehow longer, glides across the sand-smooth floor. You do not look back, not because you're afraid, but because you finally understand. It will always be there. The room the sun never reaches, still glowing, still remembering, still waiting, just for you. You enter the chamber like someone remembering a forgotten melody. Not a sound echoes, yet something presses softly on your ears. The air is thick with stillness, but it's not empty. It waits. You don't know why, but you stop walking. The silence is not passive. It hums, barely like the memory of sound. Not of language, but of intention. Something deep, something sacred. And then, without vibration, without air, without a single spoken breath, you feel it. Your name, it doesn't hit your ears. It touches your spine. The way certain dreams leave fingerprints. You didn't hear it, but you know it was said. Or perhaps, remembered. You don't know who or what said it, but it wasn't random. It wasn't mechanical. It was shaped, delivered. A whisper without a voice. Inside a room where even your breath feels like a trespass. And that's when it stirs the recognition. not of language, but of presence. A presence older than your first memory, older than this pyramid, older than time with names. This name. It isn't the one printed on your passport. It's not the name your mother used when she sang you to sleep. It's the one that lived before those. The name you had before you were born. Before sound was sound. Before being was body. It's a name you knew when you were wind. A name that was given when stars still remembered their origins. It's the name that followed you here. Your hand moves to your chest, not in fear, in remembrance. You feel something vibrating under your ribs, like a second heartbeat. It doesn't frighten you. It steadies you, like something within is waking up. The stone around you doesn't move. And yet, the space bends just slightly as if turning to face you. Not with eyes, but with listening. And you realize you are not the only one remembering this chamber, this geometry of dust and shadow. It too holds memory. It too knows your name, not the letters, but the rhythm. You take another step, and the soundlessness follows you, or perhaps leads. With each breath, you feel more named, not called named, as in understood, claimed, seen, not by anyone, but by everything. It is a strange intimacy to be recognized without being touched, to be heard without sound, to be named not for what you've done, but for what you are beneath doing. There is no echo in this chamber, and yet, you know your name is bouncing off every wall. Somewhere centuries ago, someone else stood here. They too were called. They too stood still. You wonder, did they answer, or did they vanish into the knowing? There is a warmth now, not on your skin, but inside your breath, like breathing in candlelight, like inhaling recognition. You do not speak back. What could you say? This isn't a conversation. It's a reunion. The dust on the floor doesn't stir, but your bones do. They remember a time when being named meant becoming whole, when to be spoken was to be reassembled. You do not cry, but something behind your eyes softens. You feel seen not by a person, but by meaning. You were never lost. You were just waiting to be called. And now, you have been. The name fades again, but it does not leave. It settles. It hums beneath your skin, like an ancient chord vibrating between the ribs and the stars. You were heard, and that is enough. It begins with the hush. Not the silence of stone or shadow, but the quiet you feel when the story is about to end. That gentle pause, like the last breath of a candle before the dark becomes whole. You reach a staircase carved not in symmetry, but in memory. It spirals downward, yet the light around it seems to rise. There are no markings here, no names, no warnings, no instructions. Only dust, ancient and soft, like the ashes of a forgotten vow. Your hand rests on the wall beside you. The stone is warm, too warm for this deep in the earth. Like it remembers someone, like it remembers you. You begin your descent. Each step echoes without sound, leaving no imprint behind. The air does not stir. Your breath feels like it's borrowed. The further you go, the less your body feels like your own. Not because something is wrong, but because something is shifting. You are becoming a moment, not a person. A memory before it's written. And then, at the bottom, it happens. You reach the final step. There's no fanfare, no light from above, no whisper from behind the veil. Just a strange, soft certainty. You have crossed something. Not a threshold, not quite. It's more like a ripple through the fabric of now. And you've slipped through the seam. You are still standing, still breathing, still here. But not entirely, because here this place is not meant to be shared. It is the room beyond the record, the moment that no one can tell, Not because they forgot, but because they never knew. No one saw you take that step. No one followed. No one even noticed the silence you left behind. You wonder if that's what this place is. The archive of unseen arrivals. Where the steps of the soul go when the eyes of the world blink. There are objects around you. But they are not artifacts. They're feelings, made solid. A coat of warmth folded on a bench of longing. A bowl of still water that once reflected a lost goodbye. A cracked lantern that still glows faintly with the memory of being held. And in the center, a circle, drawn not with chalk or pigment, but with absence. You step into it, and suddenly you remember why you came. It wasn't to find, it wasn't to know. It was to end something. Or perhaps to let something end through you. A story, a cycle, a name that no longer fits. You close your eyes, not to escape but to see. And what you see is not vision. You see the moment you were born, not into life but into selfhood. The moment the world convinced you you were separate. From others, from silence, from home. You see the masks, the memories, the mirrors, and how each one added a layer. And now, here, you begin to take them off, one by one, not in grief, not in fear, but like someone laying down tools after the building is finished. You are not dying. You are dissolving back into the part of the story that needs no face. And as you do, a soundless warmth surrounds you. It doesn't lift you, doesn't take you. It simply welcomes. No door opens, no vision swirls, but something in the room exhales. Because you made it, because you finished the path, because no one needed to witness it, for it to be real. And when they come looking, when someone someday walks this staircase, they will stop at the penultimate step. They will hesitate, and they will not know why. But something in the stone will remember, not your name, but your return. There is a moment right after a bell stops ringing when the air still shivers. That's where you are now. You can no longer tell if your feet are on the floor. You're not floating, not rising, and yet, the weight has gone. Even thought no longer follows the shape it used to. Your questions soften. Your identity fades at the edges. And something older than memory begins to lift away. Around you, the chamber holds its stillness. But the stone is changing. Not physically. It remains rough, pitted, weathered like 1,000 stories folded into its skin. But the feeling, the silent music beneath its surface shifts. Like a chord resolving after lifetimes of tension, you run your hand along its face, and it no longer answers you. Not because it is distant, but because it no longer has to. It is finished. The message, the echo, the riddle of the place, all of it has come to stillness. Not by solving, not by revelation, but by presence. It has seen you. It has shared its last breath with your own. And now it begins to fade, not disappear, not retreat. Just stop asking you to carry it. You were never meant to build the stone. You were meant to witness its becoming, to trace its lines, to feel its pulse, to name it without naming. And now the stone knows itself, not through you, but beside you. There is no ceremony, no final test, no gate that swings open, just a thinning, like fog dissolving in dawnlight, like perfume vanishing on a lover's scarf. The stone was the dream, the architecture of your wondering, the shape of a question you lived so deeply, you forgot it wasn't real. But now it no longer needs to hold your shape. It releases you, and in that release, the dream loosens its seams. It doesn't tear. It doesn't shout. It simply forgets the tension that once defined it. And so do you. Not like forgetting a name or a face, but like forgetting how to be afraid. You turn your head, and the chamber is still there. But your eyes no longer demand meaning from it. They simply rest. You smile. Not because you understand, but because you don't need to. You were the part of the story that asked the question. Now, the story continues. Without the question. Without the need to be answered. You step back. Not upward. Not out. Just away. And as you do, the edges of the dream fold in like wings. Not to close, but to cradle what was learned. And that knowledge, that sacred silence, belongs now to the stone, to the air, to something more whole than either of you ever were alone. There's nothing left to hold, not even yourself. And it is beautiful. You've wandered through reflections that weren't yours, through rooms that glowed without light, through voices that spoke without sound. Each step carried something forgotten. Each stone remembered something you couldn't name. And now here in the soft stillness beyond endings, you don't need to understand. You've been held by a dream that didn't ask for answers, only presence. So let your shoulders fall. Let your breath arrive without effort. Let your mind loosen its grip slowly, kindly. There's nowhere left to go. You've already been everywhere. Now you're safe. The world can wait. Sweet dreams.